Good day, everybody.
Good day.
This is Yuji SUZUKI. I have been involved in UNESCO's activities in the last 40 years. Also, I have been working on the international relations in Asia and the Pacific region, particularly countries like Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, so on, Southeast Asia. I'm not a specialist of African studies, but I have learned quite a lot from the political changes, economic development, and social welfare in the process of modernization in those Southeast Asian countries. So that I will touch a little bit about my experience in Asia, through which I may present some of the issues that young Africans would face in the near future. So title is A Message for Young Africans from My Experience in Asia. Today I am going to talk a little bit about 4 lines of important issues. First, 21st century, which is our century today, may become the African centuries at the end of this century, 100 years. In Africa, we would see the emergence of big nations on the global stage. How these African centuries develop and what will be the problems, that's first the topic that I'm going to touch. 2, among problems I see from the Asian experience that Africa may face soon is the challenges of population growth and food security. These are long traditional issues of economists and political scientists, not only in European history, American history, Asian history, but at the same time, it would be a serious question for African nations to settle. 3, Africa is not made of overnight. Africa became Africa after many centuries of its own experience. African history has a large part that many non-Africans do not understand properly. I might say, Africans themselves may not recognize how complex history that African nations experienced for many, many centuries. And I think learning from the past would be the linchpin or golden key to open the future. History is always important means for us to go ahead of the history. So that I'm going to touch on particular aspect of African experience in the past, which has many similarities with Asian nations, colonialism. I'm going to talk a little bit about the legacy of colonial dominations over many centuries in comparison to European, American colonialism, or I may say Japanese colonialism in a very brief period of Asian nations. I'll be very much happy to introduce you how Asian nations tackled with problems remained by colonial powers, political, economic, and social. So that I will be very happy to touch a little bit about the similarities and dissimilarities between Asia and Africa. Let me begin Africa's rise in terms of population. Year 2000, Africa had only 0.8 billion people. 800 million. It at that time, Asia, where we belong, Japan is one of the Asian countries, 3.7 billion people already. Europe at that time had only 0.7 billion, 700 million, just over Africa. But look at 2050, 50 years later, Asia grows up to 5.3 billion. Asia is developing, growth rate is 43%. But Africa, from 0.8 to world 2.5 billion people, 212% growth, super growth. Only next super growth marked by Oceanians. But Africa is a champion of the population growth in this picture. Then, what will be the 100 years if we look at 2100, now 77 years later? Africa would have, can you imagine, 3.9 billion people? 38% of total world population. That's Africans. On the other hand, Asia, starting from 4.6, they will reach 4.7 billions. That means Asian population would not grow, but African grow every year, 2.6% growth every year. Now,